Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Austin.
My name is Ian, and we are so excited to be returning from a very long hiatus from podcasting.
It's been like a solid...
It's been too fucking long.
3 months or something?
Yeah, literally. I think the last one we released was like the end of, March?
Yeah, what was the last one? Is Ian a multi-effects guy?
It was either that or the Mutron one. I think it might have been Mutron, then the multi-effects one.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
That one's funny.
Yeah, that one.
I listened to that one recently and it was so fucking funny.
I did a little listening back through the originals and the first few cracks me up because you could tell we're just like learning how to get into it, but then at the same time I'm like having the thought, wow, we're doing a pretty killer job for people who have never podcasted.
Faking it.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, totally.
But so Ian, what have you been up to? Ian and I have remained friends even without podcasting. Even though podcasting was maybe one of the things that got us closer, arguably you could say.
Right.
But I feel like our friendship has gotten closer.
Totally. I don't know that we'd even be friends if it wasn't for podcasting, because we became friends. It's just a little history for everybody. We became friends probably November, just end of November last year.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we met each other, and then just the second or third time we hung out, Austin was like, man, have you ever thought of hey dude, do you like guitar pedals? Yeah. He's like, have you ever thought of doing a podcast? And I was like, yeah, totally. And then you're like, oh, what if we did one about guitar effects? And I just thought, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So we kind of came together, and then, I don't know, we've actually become good friends, I think, because of the podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
What have I been up to circle back to your question? I mean, all sorts of things. Finished out a school semester studying something I hate.
You did a big jump.
Yes.
You did a big loop around.
Yeah, totally. Actually, probably right around that time we did our last podcast that we published was when, I did this total 360 and just decided to go full bore into music and no longer
so what kind of
hold
music
anything
are you
back.
Do? Are you just going to be... I know myself, but if you want to tell the world of what you're going to do in the music industry.
Right. I love show tunes. So...
Broadway.
I'm trying to be on Broadway, man. I think I'll find out more as I go, and I realize that at least looking at being a musician or being in the industry, it seems like, and maybe you could attest to this, you end up doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But I'm leaning toward this music industry degree at Cal State Northridge, just for the very fact that it gets you involved in their record label that they run there, gets you involved in some of the industry, and then
Cal State has a record label?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Their own student-run record label.
Or student-run record label.
Mm-hmm. Kind of cool, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What artists are on there?
I have no idea. We could find out.
That's weird. Because I wonder, who signs the bands? The school?
I want to...
If it's, school-owned, yeah, that makes sense. But, if it's student-ran, what happens when the student graduates,
Right. I have no idea. I want to say it's something like the administrators maybe work with certain students to find that type of thing. Maybe it's available for students to record their projects. That would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I bet it's like other studios in some ways where they just pass roles down to whoever's coming up through it. But, I don't know that they teach audio engineering there, so they must have people hired or coming in from the outside.
I don't know.
To do that type of stuff. I guess I'll find out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been leaning toward that because I feel like, and this is all, me just, hypothesizing, but I feel like, the path I see is I'll work with people in the music industry trying to make money that I'd have to make it a day job elsewhere, while also trying to do studio work with people and play in a band. And so I think I want to do, I guess, a little bit of everything, to answer your question, very specifically. I'd hope to maybe work in a studio, maybe record in a studio, helping people fill in and play instruments, guitar and bass or something on people's records.
Yeah.
And then just play my own stuff.
You're about to release a record, right? With Tillman.
Yeah, dude. With Tillman. I was helping Tillman do bass lines. essentially for he does like, I don't want to put him in a box, but like sort of SoundCloud style rap beats.
That's big right now, though.
Very big.
That SoundCloud sound.
Yes.
Like lo-fi. He doesn't really do lo-fi stuff, but that lo-fi chill rap beats.
Totally.
Like people listening on SoundCloud. That's pretty big right now.
Yeah, that like FL, like the Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
Like 2011, 2012. People just keeping it super simple. Like hi-hats, rides, occasional 808 in there. But like, it's very stripped down compared to what you could produce. For sure. But yeah, I just was doing that with him. And him and I would occasionally make a song that was more sort of both of us. He'd come in, we'd start bouncing ideas back and forth. I'd play a bass line, I'd get my guitar out, write a little guitar part, and we just decided, hey, like, you know, the name of the game is to create, so we might as well just release something.
Totally. You're also just sitting on your hard drive.
Exactly.
You know? And at that point, it's not doing anything.
Right.
It's just a waste of time.
Right. And so...
Which is worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I would rather put something out and have someone say, like, this is awful, I hate this, or like, I hate your production, I hate your guitar tone, rather than just have something on my hard drive where it just doesn't do anything, you know?
Right, exactly. Like, I'm sure it's been multiple people that have said this, but basically the idea, like, any feedback is good feedback, right? It's better to be talked about some than not at all.
And I feel like negative feedback is better than positive feedback.
Because it's still constructive, and it's also still people having a emotional reaction to what you're doing. Even if it kind of upsets them, they care about it, and it's notable in some way, even if it's because they don't like it, right? That should be out in the next, like, we're hoping like the next week or two. We just have like one more track to finalize.
Are you looking just to release on SoundCloud only? You're going to do the whole all music platforms like, you know, Spotify and all that?
I think we're going to go for it. iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud.
Hell yeah.
YouTube even, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, why not, right? And that's what you did with Western Waters, right?
Yeah, for the EP. But Western Waters, which is a band that I play in and also record and write and produce, but we have so many songs on the hard drive that probably won't make it on any sort of record, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Just because it's just like ideas being thrown around.
Totally.
That's the other argument of it, where it's like just because you have a song doesn't mean it's worth releasing.
Totally is the other side of that, right? Yeah.
But like if you like it and you dig it, just put it out there.
Right.
That's been my motto for the last week. My motto changes weekly, though.
Right.
Through like this quarter life crisis.
Quarter life crisis. Hey, man, me too. I think you have to innovate how you feel about everything pretty frequently, because if you're not like looking for new ways of looking at the world, or at least if you're not looking to, I think, improve upon your worldview, I think you get stagnated, you know?
Yeah.
Especially like creatively, like you're talking about. You know, I would have probably 2 or 3 months ago felt like, oh no, I'm not just releasing something we literally work on these tracks for a few hours, like every week or week and a half. And so it's like, and they're quick takes, like we'll finish a song in like 30 minutes. And so like 3 months ago, I probably would have been like, oh hell no, like I'm not releasing that. But I'm kind of in that same space you're in, where it's like, you might as well. I mean, you're only going to be on this planet so long. Like, who cares? Even if you look back and don't love it, it's like,
yeah, who cares?
Who cares? I mean, it's kind of,
the world's not going to like shame you for releasing something.
No,
unless you're this big pop star and then you release this album that's super far out. People are probably going to give you shit for it, but like nothing bad's going to happen.
People still buy it.
People will still buy it. Yeah,
and they
maybe more people will buy it because it's, you know, not what they expected.
Exactly. You might as well release things. I've been thinking about it recently, like exercising, just get in the reps. And again, it doesn't hurt you to release something. So yeah, look out for that. The album's going to be called Channels. We haven't finalized the name. We think the project name, the alias, will be Wave Crusher.
Nice. What does that mean? Surfing or audio waves?
More related to audio waves. You know, I think there was this whole like radio theme going on for us, because we feel like when we get together to create, it's always something radically different, vibe-wise, style-wise. So we just felt like in some ways, it's like switching through radio channels when you're listening to the record, because there's a consistent creativity there that you could tie to like our styles, but it's not, every song's really different.
Yeah.
Some feels like more like a rap banger, and then other ones feel more like this chill wave. I don't even know, lo-fi, like just chilled out, like instrumental. So
more guitar heavy.
Yeah, some gets more guitar heavy. Others, it's like the guitar is very minimal. So I don't know. We just wanted wave in the name, and we just been throwing a lot of different things around. But yeah, we're just getting on different wavelengths. I think that's part of it, right? Crushing sound waves, crushing wavelengths. Just having fun with it.
Just having fun. I don't know. We're just having fun with it.
We are, man. It's like not trying to take it too seriously. I think that's a whole like name of the game with it.
I think that's a thing that I've been doing too much recently, like taking everything too seriously. Like I've been so stressed with just my life and my work recently because I've quit, in a sense, like my day job. So I've just been working freelance and just doing mixes and mastering other songs for people, like not necessarily my own. And I just feel like there's always this stress. Everything you do has to be perfect. Whatever you do, like if I'm working on a song and I feel like it's not going to go anywhere, I get so discouraged to do something. And I kind of just reminded myself yesterday, I was just noodling on the guitar, that just, you can noodle on the guitar and just play for fun, Like you can still play for yourself, even if you do work in the music industry.
Right.
And I just forgot about that the other day.
Yeah, I know it's easy to, I think, get into that trap, and especially probably at the level that you are involved in the industry, especially, I know being like an engineer or on sort of the mixing, producing, mastering side, like the whole sound engineering side of it in general. I could imagine you get even further into that headspace where it's like you're thinking about everything very seriously, and a lot of like thoughts probably fall in line with like, is this good? Is this a right take? Is this the right style? Like there's a lot of dissection, right?
Yeah. And I feel like I forgot why I chose to do music, because I love music. I love playing music, and I love listening to music, and I just love talking about music. And I just reminded myself, like, you can still do all that stuff for fun while also working in there,
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a weird moment for me.
It's a powerful moment, I think. And I relate to it. I think that's part of even why I made this 360 myself, was like realizing I absolutely love music, and I everything you just said, essentially. I love playing it. I love talking about it. And I think that was part of the decision, just realizing that all the greats out there, whoever made something wonderful, did it because they loved it. They just loved showing up and creating something wonderful that came from their heart or came from a deep creative space of like, that wasn't edited, And I think for me, I was existing in this edited version of my life where it's like, oh, I'll do this other thing, and then music can be on the side. And it's like, why not that be the main course? In some ways, you have to strike this balance between taking it very seriously and not seriously at all.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a certain swag. I was talking with Ian and I's mutual friend, Sean Williamson.
It's a fresh LaCroix
That's a fresh
popping.
LaCroix, sponsored by LaCroix. But I was talking to... I was talking to our friend Sean. He lives in Nashville now. He moved out to Nashville to pursue a career in music, being a producer and engineer. But he was saying that there's a certain swagger in a successful musician or in a successful engineer, producer, like who have it, A&R, label. There's a certain swag and confidence about yourself that I feel like I'm not quite there yet. I don't know about Ian, but I feel like it's that calmness that you have.
Right.
Like the comfortability in yourself that you're not perfect and everything you're going to do is perfect, but that's why people want you.
Right. Right. I totally, I know exactly what you're saying. And
like
I don't know.
I always bend really sharp. When I bend and I solo on the guitar, I'm bending up. I go sharp. If I'm confident in myself, instead of saying like, oh, I'm sharp all the time, that's just like my style.
Right. And instead of just not dissecting it and leaning into it and letting it happen as it's happening, I think I engage in a similar thing where it's like I then am judging it from this place that's very disconnected from just like you said, creating. I think what you're saying is like from creating from this sort of calm place where you're just being honest with what's coming out of your instrument or yourself. Because I think that's what a lot of great musicians have, or great creators, creative types have, even extending out into art and comedy, is like trusting and believing in your signature as a person, as a creator, because there is a certain soul signature or creative signature to everyone. And I know, and I relate to what you're saying about like, you know, the swagger or that confidence. I don't know that I'm quite there yet, but I think I'm realizing that aspect of it a little more for myself, and I'm realizing how I could get there a little more. And I think it involves like realizing what you're about and what you're not.
You know
about
what I mean,
musically.
though, right? Like when you talk to a session player that plays guitar, and like they playing all these cool records that you want to be on, and you just spilled some liqueur on him. You know, like talking to him, you can feel the vibe of them. It's so hard to explain.
No, but you are explaining it, and you're hitting it on the head. I think it's just it's an energetic thing. It's a presence. It's a mindset. Mm-hmm. It's like a work ethic. It's like, I'm here. I've done the work. I almost relate it to like a runner. Like, you know, there's a certain calmness to runners, people who do like long distance running.
Yeah.
It's because like they've trudged through the hard times, the good times. They put in the repetitions. They've like been down that road. And I think it's the same thing with those players you're talking about. Like, they know it doesn't help to be overly analytical about themselves. At least this is what I get from the outside.
Yeah.
Like, they have to have that in order to produce the best stuff that's going to come out of them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think they realize how crucial that is.
You know, I've been thinking about recently too, it's on the same subject, but I feel like working in the music industry, it's a little different. It's like, it's not an office job where, you know, you show up at 9, whatever. You go to your desk, you go to your cubicle, sell stuff, you're a salesman, you get home at 5, all that kind of stuff, you know, like
Right.
the people that you work with, you're going to work with maybe in a smaller room or a medium to large sized room for like 10 to 12 hours at a time. You just think, on top of being like a cool dude or whatever, like cool, calm dude, confident in yourself, you also have to like get along with those people. So like goes back to the whole thing of being like a good hang kind of thing. And I feel like that's where the swagger comes in. Because, you know, you're in a recording session and say you're the assistant or you're the engineer and you're so anal on what you're doing. I'm talking specifically on the audio side because that's all I know. But like, you're so anal on what you're doing and you're so like strict and stiff. Like, no, don't hit the drums like that. Or don't play that hard. Like, you're fucking up my compressor. You know, I feel like then it creates a bad vibe, and I feel like that's what the swagger is. It's kind of just like going with the flow of what's going on,
Right.
you know,
Right. Totally.
and being cool with it, and being able to adapt to that.
Right.
I feel like that's something that I'm still learning how to do.
No, I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Completely. I totally understand what you're getting at. Like, I get that. I think you're saying a few things. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one thing you're saying is like having that confidence, that cool, calm collectedness in yourself as a player, as like maybe an engineer, but then also having that extend out into like your personal relations with people when you're dealing with them. And like, I think those people have practiced it, but also realized like that the more they can have a deeper trust in themselves and the people they're working with, the better it's going to go. At least that's what I think kind of is being translated. So like you said, if you get all up in a drummer's face and you're telling him, oh, you know, you're hitting it too hard, it's not the right thing, like that can, I think, then detract from his performance or his just feel that he's going to actually put into the record. So I think like, you know, those people who have that swagger, to use your word, have learned how to communicate effectively to the people they're working with.
Yeah.
And also learned like how to make what they have available to themselves as skill and talent. Like,
Yeah, 'cause that's
really
a good thing
work.
to put out too. Because like if you're producing an album and the drums shouldn't be hit that hard, like there's some, I feel like I'm using the word swagger too much, but like there's some way to approach
Like
the
wisdom,
drum.
right? Like that's a
wisdom's
good,
great.
Yeah, that's a good
There's
word.
some
right?
wisdom that an experienced person has that approaches the musician to like keep the vibe going and not make him very stressed out, you know?
Right.
I don't know how we got to this situation of personal interaction with musicians in the studio, but
I think
that's just been in my head recently. I don't know.
it all relates, man. I think being in the creative industry, like music, you have to find that for yourself. And I think you were saying like you're still working on it. I certainly am. I keep thinking of the word trust. And there's like a deep trust in just like the process and your own self, and knowing, okay, I've been here before. And even if I haven't, even if there's new stuff presenting itself, the only way we're all going to move through this in a better way through the creative process is just by me adding a positive contribution to things and not being this like sort of, I don't know, this disruptor in the session, whether that's like with attitude or how you're like how you're dealing with the people around you. I just think there's this wisdom there. I know what you're saying though, like completely. There's a wisdom there to those like experienced session guys or engineers or even people who just, like you said, do A&R. You know, there's a certain confidence.
Yeah.
I think there's like, to go back to your bending point, I don't know, like, don't you think there's something to figuring out your own feel and touch on things and realizing like you don't have to replicate any style at any moment? I think, like, I've been realizing that recently, like, it's great to know different styles, but it's like, if something isn't you, I think there's something to be said about like realizing it's not you and just being like, I don't have that in me, or like, I'm not gonna, I don't have that. It's like not within me, I don't know, to do that specific thing or that type of part. I don't know.
I was watching this documentary about session players, and this piano guy was talking about how to be a good session player, specifically for the piano. You have to be able to switch. Like, we're going to do a jazz piece, and then in a couple hours we're going to do this New Orleans swing, and just being able to play those things. And I think having that knowledge of what that means, you know, being in a room, the producer says, I want this to feel...
like bebop.
Yeah, bebop. And then if you could just be like, oh yeah, sure. Whip it out, you know?
Yeah.
But I think still holding on to how you actually play alone with yourself and like where you kind of placed your roots, I think is important.
That's a better way of saying what I'm trying to say. I think that's a great way of saying it. Like, you should definitely, you know, be able to go from jazz to reggae to rock in one session if you need to. But I think like sort of holding on to how you would do it is a great way of saying it. Like, and kind of recognizing some ways that you would do, like do a take. That's like a way that somebody else might do a take for a jazz record isn't the way you're going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even if it's the same notes, same everything.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like realizing, okay, that's not within me. I'm not Chick Corea. I'm not Bill Evans. I guess I'm thinking of like legends right now. I don't know a lot of session piano players, but to like think like, oh, I'm not them. I'm Ian Roesch. I don't play piano, but like I'm Ian Roesch. Like, how would I do this take with the given music?
Yeah.
And I think it relates back to this, like this swagger, this wisdom you're talking about. It's like you kind of learn where you're at as a player, and you realize what you can do and can't do. You know?
Yeah. Because if someone's contacting you to record on their session, record on their song, and play whatever instrument, they're contacting you because they like your style. They like how you play. You know?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Kind of thing. Like, they like how you phrase everything. They like your dynamics and all that stuff.
Right.
But there still is that stress of like, you know, we have a limited time to do this. I was recording Pedal Steel a while back, and he came in, set up. I think he did a couple songs, like an hour to 2 hours, and then he just left. You know?
That's a pro.
It's a pro. He's great.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think you're making a good point. I mean, that's when you are at that pro level. It's like you just know what needs to be done. It's like being like a mason. If you're, I'm just relating this because I did masonry if like probably 4 or 5 years ago, but like if you are doing fascia, which is like this fake stone you put on the side of a house, like after the first like even just 3 or 4 times, you're like, you know exactly what needs to be done. You know what tools you need. So you show up, you bust the job out as fast as possible. And I think this is the same thing
It's
with
experience thing.
these musicians who have really done it a long time or enough. Yeah. It's a great topic you brought up. I think it's things I've been thinking about a lot recently. Just
Same.
how do you get to that place? How do you train that? How do you do that even in an isolated way?
Yeah, I think it's just taking all the gigs you could get, in my opinion. Like, I haven't focused at all on being a session player or trying to do that. Like, I'll play guitar on my friends' songs for fun and stuff like that just because I have so much guitar gear. But I wouldn't call myself a session guitarist.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm at that level of skill where I can come in on anybody's track and just play.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, I mean, you do, though, in a way, you know? Because you filled in for Western Waters, Tillman,
Sure.
and then your style.
Sure.
And those are all very different styles. You know, your style's a little bit more jazz and blues. Tillman's is hip hop. Western Waters is singer-songwriter. You know, so in a way, you're kind of like adapting.
Right, but I see it as like
for me, example, like I play guitar in Western Waters, electric guitar. So I have this very specific electric guitar sound that maybe arguably Western Waters based its whole sound around. Is the sound of my pedals,
yeah.
my pedal chain, StompBox situation plug. So when I've done sessions in the past with my pedals and my gear and like my amps and all that shit, a lot of people have said it sounds too Western Waters. It sounds too Western Waters like, which is cool because like, you know, there's this tag on the band in of itself. You know, like the band has a specific sound. The band's not big at all. We have like 30 listens. But the people that do know me, because I don't advertise at all as a session guy, are just my friends. But a lot of them say it sounds too Western Waters like.
Right.
You know, or I'll produce a song and try to send it to a friend, and then they'll typically say like it sounds too Western Watersy. And it's so interesting because I don't know what I'm doing, you know?
Right.
Like I'm not being like, I'm going to write a Western Waters tune. Mm-hmm. Even though I do that, sometimes I sit down to specifically write for like Western Waters or somebody else, but when I just write, it just sounds very specific. That's why I feel like I'm not at the level of a session player.
No, I do know what you mean. I guess I'm thinking about like the nuances of that idea, like, because some of it's a compliment, right? Like you have developed some specific sound on your guitar with your equipment. Like there's a style you have, and then also as an engineer or a producer, like there's a style you possess.
There's a specific style, but it's very boxed in though. That's the shitty thing, you know?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like on one side of it, I feel like you're saying, or I'm just assuming you feel like you'd want to break out of that or know how to break out of that in a more varied way. Like, so if you needed to go into some whole new box, you're kind of saying like, I'm hearing this like from you. Maybe I'm not right, but sounds like you're saying like you don't want to come in and make it Western Watersy sometimes, and then you do, and you're like, oh fuck, that's not really what I was trying to do here, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like on the other side of it, again, like, you know, I think about certain producers.
Yeah, certain producers have their sound too.
Yeah, and people
you
go
know,
to them specifically
for that sound.
For sound. Like you pointed out to me the other day, the guy who worked on, I don't know if he was the producer or the head engineer, but the guy who worked on Casey Musgrave's newer album. You were saying he's like the same guy who worked on War on Drugs, right?
Yeah.
And instantly I was like, yeah, I really could hear that. You know, you could hear his style mixed in there.
Yeah.
So I could imagine a scenario where someone related to Casey or Casey yourselves was like, I want that guy, you know? And he came in and did his thing. So some of it I could see is like not bad at all. But I see what you're saying on the other side. Like maybe you'd want to bust out of that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. In a way, I think I just want to bust out of that because I just want to be able to experience new things at the moment. You know, I want to be able to sit down and say I want to make a hip hop beat right now. I've never done that, so I don't know how hard that is because I write everything on an acoustic. So I have no idea how to start that.
Right.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to be a little bit more diverse and understand the different genres and how all the process of all that goes. You know?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Starting from scratch. But I'm probably going to stay in the more organic side of music, like live instruments and drums, bass, electric, acoustic, and all that stuff, because I really enjoy recording those things. But I think as of production-wise, it just seems interesting to learn other techniques of other producers and see if I can adopt some of the stuff I like from that and put into, you know, some things that I like from here, and then create this big pot of tools.
Totally.
Just increase my tool bag.
Yeah, dude, I definitely hear where you're coming from. I mean, because you were saying a little bit earlier, like, oh, that's kind of what you do already, when I was saying, like, I don't really feel like I have that ability to come in and be a session player, like come in and do specific styles. You're like, oh, but you kind of are doing it. And I think, I don't know, just as a response to that, I think, and in relation to this conversation, just, I think like, I relate to like, I don't know, I have a lot of, I don't know why athletic metaphor is coming through right now, but I relate to being like a runner, You know, it's like I feel like I'm doing 5Ks, so eventually I can do a marathon, you know? And so I'm coming in and I'm trying to do hip hop stuff. And sometimes I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Same thing's coming in with you guys. Like there were some moments playing on your songs where it's like, I don't really know what to do here. I'm not sure what sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, you still like kept yourself though. That's the thing, which goes back to the topic that we brought up earlier. Like you still kept it Ian. Like you didn't try to play like me.
Right.
Which is you know, it's like I write all the guitar parts and there's multiple guitar parts on the songs, but like you didn't try to replicate me. You still played, like you played the parts, but you played them how you would play them.
Right. That's
which is the Ian way, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate that. Seriously, I do. I feel like that's, to me, a compliment at least, because I like to be able to do that where like preserve a little bit of me in whatever it is I'm doing. Because I want to, because I don't feel like I'm quite at that skill yet where I could come in and do all sorts of records or do all sorts of things with, you know, like if someone wanted me to play in a certain style band, I don't know that I could pull it off necessarily. I don't feel maybe like my tool bag is that big yet, but I'm trying to work on that because I too would like to be able to get to a place where I feel more comfortable, like soliciting people and saying like, hey, if you want me to play on this funk album or this reggae thing or this jazz thing or this like bebop, I don't know, like I'd like to be able to like have a confidence in going in there and doing it justice while still maybe kind of keeping it in a feel that I would have.
Yeah, I think you just got to do it, man. I think you just got to get in there and just do it and have that really bad session. Have that really awkward session where nobody's digging the stuff that you're playing, you know, and just power through it.
Right.
And then you go home and you question if you should keep your guitars, or you think, should I just sell one of them? You know, not all of them, or should I just sell one of them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Just get that bad session out of the way. It's like having that bad interview.
Right.
I feel like you learn more from that bad interview because you realize like where you're weak at.
Right. I think that's, I totally agree.
Like I got kicked out of a session a while ago, a couple years ago. I got kicked out of like a punk session.
Oh, wow.
Because I just didn't fit the vibe. I was too, hey guys. I was the assistant. So I was like, do you guys need any water?
So just literally your interpersonal.
Just like too customer servicey.
Right.
You know? And I think it just like gave them a weird vibe. Like they don't want this fucking 19-year-old kid. I don't know what that was. I don't know, 19, 20-year-old kid. Like watching every move that they make, trying to predict like when they want water.
Right.
Or predict when they want coffee.
It was like too stiff for them, or it was too,
They just wanted to get in this nice space and just record and work on their songs. And like, I get it. Like at the time I was kind of bummed out, but looking back now, I totally could see like just this fucking random ass kid staring at you, watching your every move and just kind of creeping you out. You know?
Totally.
I wouldn't want that.
Totally. I think it's necessary for sure to have like some bad moments and some moments where you get an evaluation of what you need to work on if you actually want to do the stuff you want to do, right? Like, so even just playing with some guys over the last few months, like, you know, I've gone home many times. I've been like, wow, I got to hit the metronome more. Or, wow, I got to work on my, you know, modes and scales. And I especially am looking forward or looking toward this coming like semester and transferring probably either in the fall of this next year or the spring. And like, I just look at like auditioning, like getting in, like playing with all sorts of different people. And I'm like, I'm seeing it like there's some work to be done. You know what I mean? Like there's some shit I need to do to prepare to get to that place. Cause I've I've had those moments where, and sometimes it just takes something casual. Like we met up a couple times with our buddies in Jammed, and they're very technically talented players. And it was like, I walked out of there and I was like, damn, like I just can't keep up with that. You know, I'm not there yet. And so I think over the next probably few years, I mean, it's probably going to be, I think probably be a while, you know, I think in some ways before you really like have that certain confidence we were talking about earlier. Yeah. But I think there will be a lot of sessions and a lot of moments where it's just like, oh shit.
Like, oh fuck, this is awkward.
Yeah. So
you're trying to remember the changes and you can't remember the changes.
Totally.
It gets super awkward.
Or they want you to rip out a certain style solo and you just don't have it.
Oh, yes.
That's always very uncomfortable. Maybe you don't have the speed. Maybe you don't have like the technicality.
I was on stage once,
Yeah.
and I was playing with this one band that was just kind of more Southern rock like. It was a little bit more of like a free band. You know, you have the liberty of kind of doing whatever you want.
Right, like it's not like, okay, you got a 40-second solo, hit it,
it's
we're
like
done.
you're going to solo for 4 bars, we're going to hit the chorus, and you're done. It's kind of like...
We're going to feel it.
We'll feel it out. It's kind of like a jam band in a way, but Southern rock. Mm-hmm. And we're up on stage, and it's my time to solo. Like, the time to solo is known. Like, that's planned. Like,
Right.
I'm going to solo here, but you don't know how long you're going to solo. Or, like, what style we're going to solo in. And it happened to be, like, a Texas shuffle. Like, somehow we bursted out into a Texas shuffle. And I have no fucking idea how to play a Texas shuffle solo. And he was like, give me some of that shuffle. And he said that in the mic. And I was like, oh, fuck, okay.
And you're like,
Whipped on an OD. I turned on my OCD, and then I was like, all right, let's go for it. And I started just bending, like a bunch of bends, which is completely not a Texas shuffle. Like, I was thinking of like SRV kind of stuff, you know?
Right.
Like long lines, slides maybe, that kind of shit, you know?
right, some very quick pentatonic stuff.
Some very quick
Yeah.
stuff, yeah. And I just can't play that, so I was doing like a lot of bends and like really slow stuff. Anyways, I didn't get called back, but yeah.
It's one of those moments.
It's one of those moments, yeah.
Yeah, you just, yeah.
And it was worse because people were watching too.
I know
But,
that's not a good feeling, right?
Yeah.
I remember being on stage and we busted into like a quick, like country blues, you know, like a very fast paced country blues, like super fast pace.
Uh-huh.
And there's this one guy who's on, I mean, both guitar players on stage. I mean, literally everybody on stage was like a more talented musician than me and more experienced at least. And a lot of them formally trained, especially this one guitarist. But like, so there's my buddy who's kind of virtuoso, has perfect pitch. You put a song on and he can like tell you what key it's in the first like 4 seconds.
Those guys are so stressful to play with.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, it really can be. Luckily, I would say he's probably the coolest person I've ever played with who's like that. He's very laid back. He's very encouraging and positive. But it's still stressful on the inside because it's like you're comparing yourself to them inevitably.
Yeah.
Or you're
And also,
feeling
like,
in competition with them.
You know they really can hear you.
Yes.
You know they really, like, they know what you're doing.
Yeah. Hear you on that other level, right? And then the other guy who plays is like very talented. You know, he's done like Berklee's online program, or he's part of it now or something, but very talented. And so they're just like ripping it up. And then it's like my turn to solo. And
You know what I do?
this was like 6 months into me being like an electric guitarist. And I was like, I just shit the bed. And that happens so many times with those same cats.
Yeah.
But it's like you learn from it because it's like, well, it is what it is. What it is. And you also learn, like, you listen to them, and it's, I don't know, it's something you actually become grateful for because you're like, well, at least they have me on stage and they realize like I'm in the process of learning. You know.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable though when you got 40 people there watching.
Yeah, it's worse.
It's like, oh,
Okay.
yeah. So
Typically, I turn on a delay. I turn on a reverb. I turn on a tremolo, and I just affect the fuck out of my guitar. And then people usually say, oh, you're like a soundscape guy. But no, I just don't know how to play.
right, or they tell you like, oh, you must like this band, and you're like, I don't know that
like-
band, and they're like, oh man, they're shoegazy, you'd love them.
No, I just don't know how to play.
Yeah, Joe. What does Joe Bonamessa call? Oh, he calls reverb the mistake eraser.
Oh, yeah. Reverb is makeup.
Tomo Fujita always talks about that too. I took like a few lessons with him, and in those lessons, he would always talk about like turning your reverb off completely. Like when you're practicing, don't use any reverb. Don't use any effects at all when you're practicing. When you're just jamming around, sure, maybe you make a loop on your pedal or something, and then you're jamming. Okay, go ahead. But like he said, if it's like really for the purpose of practicing, he's like, don't use reverb.
Makes sense.
Because he's like, you want to hear everything exactly as it is. And it just makes complete sense. I'm thinking about being in a music program, and I'll probably start connecting with even more people and playing with more people. And
Yeah, you probably will.
I'm anticipating those moments for sure where you're just plowed by the train. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Like the train's coming and you just don't get on. You're just in front of it.
Yeah, you get nailed. Yeah.
But, you know, I'm like grateful for being able to play with someone like you, or being able to do stuff with Tillman, or even looking ahead at like trying to be in a music program and like the practice that goes into it, and just realizing like that there are people you can learn from. People are generally pretty supportive in the creative industry, and it's a long road ahead, like a mountain to climb, and you kind of just have to keep going up it and realizing like, you know,
And
you're in
then
it for the
one day
long
you
haul.
realize that you'll be at the top.
Right. Or you're at a place where you're happy and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep climbing, but I'm happy with where I'm at, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we really appreciate everybody tuning in and checking out this episode. And we had a blast making it. I know I say that every time, but it genuinely is fun.
But he's not lying, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not lying. I'm just a person who genuinely enjoys the stuff I choose to do. Because why the fuck else do it?
The next episode, we're going to talk about playing music that you don't typically enjoy.
Right. Maybe being in a band that isn't, you know, the style of music you'd personally create. As always, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We have our podcasts up on YouTube and iTunes, or the podcast app. And if you want to reach out to us, you can get us at stompboxpod@gmail.com. As always, we really appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Thanks so much.